Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Barbecue Talk. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing wood chips and wood chunks. I know a lot of people might not necessarily have an offset smoker in their backyard, especially if you're like myself and you're learning how to barbecue for the first time, then, and you started off with like a Weber Smoking Mountain or even a kettle grill or something like that, you can't really use split logs and stuff like that to incorporate smoke flavor into your cook. And so, I was at Home Depot the other day picking these two things up, and I actually ran across a couple who were looking for a smoker, and it was their first time, and I was kind of telling them what type of smoker that I look for, especially if you're starting off, because they were about to buy like a really janky offset smoker, and you guys know how I feel about that. So I was kind of directing them towards different smokers, different types of cooks that they can do on them, and also how to incorporate smoke onto their cook, which led to discussion of wood chips versus wood chunks. And to start off, I would say probably the thing that I picked up right away was these wood chips, and that's kind of what I want to talk about first is when to use wood chips opposed to wood chunks. Wood chips are kind of those things where you want to incorporate a different type of flavor on something that, one, I think it works really well for a cold smoke because I think buying hardwood, especially fruit wood, is really hard to do because, one, it's more expensive than all the other woods usually, and also it is in order to just add cold smoke, and if you don't really have like a big enough smoker to burn it, you really can't really use it. If you want to smoke like fish and cold smoke other things like sausage and stuff like that, and you don't necessarily have a firebox and things of that nature, then I think I remember doing things where I took I created like a foil pan, put some wood chips in there, and took like a hot ember or something like that, and just kind of placed it on top. What that's going to allow it to do is slowly burn, but there's not enough heat to where the whole thing is going to kind of catch and just kind of combust. With wood chips, one thing to really take into consideration is how much smoke flavor you want to impart, how long of the duration of the cook you want that smoke flavor to last, and just kind of like I said, what kind of fire you're really throwing these wood chips into. The reason why I say that is because all the wood chips that we're buying, especially things that come in a bag, are so dry that if you are, let's say for example, you are doing something on an offset, and let's say in your offset you have a bunch of coals in there instead of split logs, and you want to incorporate applewood flavor to it. If you just took a handful of applewood chips and you just threw it on there, you would almost get like a puff of like applewood smoke, and then it would just burn up because they're basically like matchsticks, and all that smoke flavor would be gone. So if you're trying to have a longer lasting smoke flavor in like a in like a cooking style where you're cooking at a higher temperature, it's probably not the best option. One way you can still incorporate maybe a kiss of smoke when you are cooking hot, I would say it's more so built for like a setting like if you're like grilling something real fast and you just want like a kiss of smoke, then you can definitely throw a handful of chips on top of it, maybe just put the lid on top of your kettle grill, just to impart some smoke flavor. But you have to have that knowledge in the back of your mind that that smoke flavor is not going to last very long. And also the other thing is, once you throw those wood chips on there, and let's say whatever meat, maybe you're cooking a steak and you have it directly underneath it, as soon as you throw those wood chips on, there's going to be some flare up also. So also you want to be careful of not using these wood chips to throw them directly under, because a flare up most likely will happen, and you don't want to burn whatever you're cooking just because you're throwing these kind of, like I said, these matchsticks on the fire. But again, I do think that these are a great option for you to, incorporate smoke into other cooking processes when you don't want to fire up your smoker. So, I have these two bags. I actually am probably going to keep the wood chips because I want to try some other things with it, and then probably return to wood chunks because I probably won't need those. All right, so Let's talk about wood chunks. This is how I thought back then too. It's like, oh, now I'm elevating from wood chips to wood chunks, and because I'm trying to, like, I feel like I'm a better cook now, so I can kind of go into bigger pieces of wood. I think it also has like a different purpose. For example, like I was talking about doing some cold smoking with the wood chips. I think it's definitely easier to do that with wood chips instead of wood chunks. Not saying that it's not impossible to do with the wood chunks, but because they are a little bit blockier pieces, you know, it's hard to kind of get an ember really close to the thing and have it incorporate as much smoke as you would with a pile of wood chips. So that's probably not the place that I would use it for. Also, the other thing that I wouldn't do is, especially nowadays when you go to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's and things like that, they sell these ginormous bags of the wood chunks. Kind of get worried when I see that, because I am wondering, are people using those wood chunks like you would with like split logs? You know, because especially if you are using a offset, you'll often see a lot of times people taking, you know, normal size logs and then splitting them in half and then maybe splitting again so they're a little bit thinner. And again, because like the wood chips, the wood chunks are dried out quite a bit. So, you know, in order for you to use it like seasoned wood, it's not the same thing. Everything is gonna burn really fast, and it's not really, it's used to incorporate flavor. It's not a heat source. So with the wood chunks, please don't try to like Lincoln log all this kind of stuff to try to make it into your heat source, because it's just really not gonna happen. And it's so dry that it's probably not gonna allow you to have a bunch of heat that comes out. You'll get a lot of smoke flavor, and it'll also die really quickly. So again, make sure you're not using it as your heat source. I would say the biggest reason to buy wood chunks is depending on what type of smoker you have. So again, like I said, my two favorite like commercial smokers or just readily available smokers are like this Weber Smoky Mountain and like ceramics and things like that. I think the wood chunks are perfect for something like a cooker of that style. If you guys know how those cookers work, you know, they put all the coals and stuff on the bottom, and they do have a little, you know, a little opening where you can put like more coals and more, you know, wood chunks and stuff like that if you need to. But I remember it being really difficult once it starts going to really, you know, to open up that slot and put coals and stuff in there. I remember at one point, we were playing around with wood chips and wood chunks with the Weber Smoky. Like I said before, if you just throw in like wood chips in there, it's just gonna burn up really fast. So you're not gonna have that long lasting smoke flavor imparted in there. And the same thing kind of with the wood chunks. Even though they'll last a little bit longer, because you're throwing it right on top of like a hot coal bed, it's gonna burn really fast, and you're really not gonna get too much smoke out of it. So the way that I would recommend doing it, I'm sure you guys have seen it a lot on YouTube as well, is that when you're creating that, or like placing the coals on the bottom of your Weber Smoky or your ceramic, you're kind of like sticking these little chunks of hardwood in there, because that way, because it's not exposed as much, it's kind of buried in with all the coals, it will burn a little bit slower, and it will allow you to have more gentle smoke flavor throughout the cook without it just like lighting right away and you have that kiss of smoke and it's gone. Just like if you guys are using that style of smoker, you're thinking about using these wood chunks, just kind of be mindful about, you know, the longevity of the cook, how long the cook is gonna be, how long you want that smoke to last, and just kind of like sprinkle them in different spots throughout your coal basket so that you can kind of slowly get smoke flavor out without just, again, in the middle of the cook, you're opening up the little latch, you throw a chunk in there, and then, you know, for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you might see some different colored smoke, and then it's just completely gone. The last thing I want to talk about when it usually comes to, especially wood chips, not so much wood chunks, is I remember hearing a lot when I was growing up where, you know, if you are going to use wood chips, then you kind of you soak them in water before you do so, because it will help it not burn as fast. I do think that is true, but the one thing that I don't like about doing that is once you start to throw like water onto your coal bed and stuff like that, you get a lot of soot that starts flying. And that's the one thing I don't like doing is, like, you know, especially like I was saying, if you're gonna get wet wood chunks and throw it on top of your coals when you're grilling or smoking some chicken, you know, you don't really want all that soot to land on top of your meat that you're eating. While I do think it does work in terms of it slows down the burning of the wood chunks, I would just say just add them periodically rather than throwing a wet handful of wood chips onto a hot fire. All right guys, so that's gonna be it for today. Hope you guys liked this video. Make sure you like, subscribe, share this video with your friends, and I'll see you guys in the next one.